12 spine-chilling Los Angeles horror stories. Discover the sinister secrets of nighttime stalkers in a quiet Los Angeles suburb. Sarah's life seemed picture-perfect. At least, that's what her neighbors said as they sipped coffee on their porches. But behind her bright smile lay a current of unease that slowly consumed her. After every shift as a nurse, the feeling of dread followed her home, gnawing at her sanity, wrapping around her mind like a vice. Flickering street lamps cast unwelcome shadows that danced near an abandoned lot, whispering terrible secrets that Sarah desperately tried to ignore. Whispers of a local man's disappearance rose from hushed conversations among neighbors, their eyes darting nervously to meet hers. Just stress, they'd say, but a chill crept up her spine. Each night, as darkness fell, her heart raced, sensing something was terribly wrong. A rustle in the bushes, a soft thump on her window. She turned quickly, catching just a glimpse of eyes, the kind that felt hungry, predatory. After nights filled with little sleep, the day brought no relief. The familiar faces of her once comforting neighborhood now seemed to ooze with suspicion. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fear settled deeper into her bones as Sarah's instincts screamed danger. Mr. Thompson, a well-meaning neighbor who was always offering to watch her children, now wore an unsettling smile. The reassuring knock on her door became a sound that haunted her. Memories of local legends crept in, stories told by fearful children about creatures that roamed when the sun dipped below the horizon. Guardians of the night, they called them, with eyes that could see through darkness and a thirst for the unsuspecting. Sarah dug through layers of folklore, piecing together a patchwork of ominous tales that tied eerily to her reality. With every breath she took, it felt as if an invisible hand tightened around her throat. She found herself glancing over her shoulder, heart pounding, blood rushing in her ears. The comforting warmth of home transformed into a cage of paranoia, her children's laughter echoing sinister undercurrents. Just outside her window, shadows morphed into gargantuan forms. They loomed, watching her. That night, after what felt like the longest shift yet, Sarah pulled into her driveway. A creeping sense of dread turned her breath shallow. The door stood ajar, a menacing invitation into darkness. Panic flooded her veins as she stepped inside, fear gripping her heart like a vice. She rushed to her children snug in their beds, blissfully unaware of the horrors outside. Their innocent faces filled her with conflicting emotions, warmth shadowed by a cold wave of terror that engulfed the room. Then came a slow, deliberate knock at the door, the kind that could freeze your blood. It echoed through her, a siren calling her to the abyss. Heart racing, she moved cautiously to the peephole, her mind screaming to turn back. The familiar voice of Mr. Thompson slithered through the cracks, but something about it felt off, drenched in darkness as he whispered, "Sarah, I think we need to talk about those stories and what actually lurks around here at night." The ground beneath her shook. Everything she held dear was up for grabs. The real fight for her children's safety had just begun, and soon, she realized, she wouldn't be able to escape the truth lurking in the shadows. The door creaked as Sarah hesitated, heart pounding, breaths quickening. The hallway behind her darkened with fear, closing in like a vice. Each beat against her ribcage roared in warning. Did he know? Did he see the dread smeared across her face? Sarah. Mr. Thompson spoke again, his tone now sliding into something low, almost conspiratorial. "You've seen them too, haven't you?" The shadows danced, and for a moment, all Sarah could think was that he was right. She'd seen things. Things flickering at the edge of her vision, a presence lurking. She shuddered, swallowing hard. "What are you talking about?" she barely managed to whisper. His smile widened unnaturally, revealing teeth that glimmered in the dim light. "The legends, the guardians of the night, they are real. You can't keep ignoring it. They know you. They see your fears. Her heart raced at the implications, a heaviness settling in her gut. She wanted to slam the door shut, but instead, she cracked it open just enough to peek at him. His eyes twinkled with something sinister, glittering like shards of glass, alive with an unspeakable hunger. She took a breath, stealing a moment of courage. "Who have you been talking to?" She could hear strength shaking her voice. "What do you know?" "Enough," he whispered, leaning closer, his voice raspy. "They chose this place because of you, Sarah. You were the perfect bait. You draw them in." Her stomach twisted. Bait? Panic clawed at her throat. Shadows wove themselves tighter around her, turning her home into a trap. She suddenly regretted not packing the kids' bags and fleeing. "Get away from my house." She slammed the door, the sound echoing in the silence that followed. Panic surged. She flipped the lock, then dashed to check on her children still sleeping peacefully. Their innocence was a jagged knife digging deeper into her heart. She had to protect them. Yet, as she reached the doorway, the foreboding sensation returned, crawling up her spine like spiders skittering to find a dark corner. Then came a noise from the window, soft, insistent scratching. With trembling fingers, she drew back the curtain slightly. She froze, breath caught tight in her throat. Outside, the shadows shifted, twisting into vague, hulking forms. They seemed to twitch, swirling as if drawing closer to the house, drawn to something within something that even now, she could almost feel them sniffing out. "Mom." A small voice pulled her, shattering the tightening tension. "Is everything okay?" Her youngest, Lily, stood there, rubbing her sleepy eyes, blissfully unaware of the creeping dread. "Stay inside, honey. Lock the door." She pressed her back against it, battling the conflicting instincts to protect her child while her heart screamed to run for her life. Seconds felt endless. She could hear a muffled conversation outside, voices overlapping, low, almost amiable, yet charged with danger. Mr. Thompson was talking to someone or something. She turned her eyes back to the rear window. Her heart dropped. Figures were advancing slowly, their outlines shifting in and out of clarity, serrated edges cutting against the night. They whispered, calling her name, their voices a haunting melody that clung to her like fog. Frightened, she boxed herself deeper into her protective instincts, gripping the door frame, waiting for the inevitable push. But the push never came. Instead, the figures paused, standing in silence. A wave of dread crashed over her. Would they come inside? Would they take what was theirs? Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the stillness, glass shattering somewhere in the house, chilling her to the core. "Mom! What is going on?" Lily's small voice echoed through the fear-building chaos. A cold sweat raced down her back, and she realized she had to act fast. There was no escape. There was no way out. Sarah's instinct kicked in like an engine revving toward catastrophe. "Lily, stay here and don't move." She rushed toward the source of the noise, dread mixing with adrenaline. She needed answers. She needed to fight. But as she stepped cautiously into the darkened hallway, the lights flickered one last time, plunging her into the abyss. What awaited her in the dark could change everything. The secrets of the night were desperate for liberation. Before she could brace herself, another crash echoed behind her, the sound of something or someone drawing near. And she knew, lurking in the shadows, the real test of her survival had only just begun. Heart racing, Sarah took a slow step forward into the darkened hallway, every nerve in her body screaming with urgency. The air was thick, suffocating. Shadows loomed like monstrous shapes, stretching and bending, almost taunting her as she grasped for control over her fear. The house felt alive around her, creaking as if it were whispering secrets. "Mom!" Lily's voice came again, stronger this time, trembling with confusion and fear. It anchored Sarah, but the urgency was building. There was no time to comfort her daughter, no time to analyze the jumbled thoughts racing through her mind. The source of the sound echoed again, a desperate shatter of glass that rang through the hall, a reminder that the threat wasn't too far off. She strained to listen, instincts screaming at her to turn back, to retreat to safety, but she thrust herself deeper into the darkness. A sickening thought crept in, what could be waiting behind each corner? "Stay put, baby," she called, forcing her voice to hold steady. With each step, shadows darted from the corners of her vision, twisting at the edges, shifting as if to ground their terror into her soul. What did Mr. Thompson mean? The question nagged at her, swirling in her head. Bait. There was something sinister beneath the surface. She could sense it, a current of dread seeping into her bones. To draw them in, was she truly their target? In the middle of the hallway, a door stood ajar, shadows spilling from inside like smoke. As she approached, chills snaked across her spine. A fleeting glimpse of movement, something slipping behind the doorframe. She hesitated just outside, her breath hitching. "Hello?" she forced out, words sounding fragile against the oppressive silence. The door didn't reply, but she heard a soft sound, a whispering, scratching noise. A chilling sense of recognition gripped her. It was familiar, like an echo of her nightmares. Mom Lily's voice was insistent now, threading through the air like a lifeline. Gathering her courage, Sarah pushed the door wide. The dark room opened up before her, filled with shadows and the scent of cold air. The broken window loomed, shards of glass gleaming like teeth in the dull light of the night. But it was the wall opposite that caught her attention, sprawled markings scrawled with frantic energy. They were desperate words, jagged and wild. "Help! Run! Don't look!" Each word felt like a warning, steeped in fear. The shadows around the room seemed to pulse, growing thicker, as if feeding off her growing panic. Her breath quickened as she stepped closer, curiosity and terror colliding. "What did you see?" she whispered to the empty room, swallowing her pride in desperation. A movement flickered again. Outside the window, the other side seemed alive with eyes, watching her, no longer just shadows, but forms that lurked, waiting for the opportunity. Suddenly, the voices from outside swelled stronger, rising into a cacophony, a horrific blend of laughter and cries, an unsettling symphony that cut through Sarah's resolve. These figures were no longer just shapeless nightmares, they were a chorus of intent woven into the fabric of her home. She had unknowingly invited the darkness inside. "Lily!" she shouted, rushing back towards the room where she'd left her daughter. "Get ready to go. Now!" But as she neared the room, the air shifted, thickened with a palpable dread. "Mom, I'm scared." There was another crash. A violent tremor shook the house, rattling walls and making the very foundation groan. Sarah stood still, frozen, as the shadows outside swarmed, filling the space with a low, ominous hum. Heart pounding, she felt the darkness pressing in, her mind racing through escape routes, grappling with the encroaching truth that time was running out, that whatever had been unleashed sought something far more sinister than mere fright. "Mom!" Lily's voice was now laced with genuine terror, echoing against the chaos. As Sarah turned, the window shattered again. Fear gripped her heart as sharp shards fell, something looming behind her, an inky blackness was spilling through. The gap. The time for answers was over. In that moment of terror, Sarah understood, the night was no longer just creeping into her home, it was invading her very soul. And somewhere, hidden in the dark, was the truth she had been desperately ignoring. Could she survive the night and face whatever awaited her in the shadows, or would she become yet another whispered legend among the guardians? The room seemed to buzz with a sinister energy, shadows crawling across the walls in a grotesque dance. Sarah's breath quickened. She needed to get to Lily, but escaping would mean navigating through the nightmare unfolding around her. "Lily!" she called again, desperation clawing at her throat. The urgency of her voice hung in the air like a desperate prayer, but the only response was that chilling cacophony from outside, laughter mingling with cries that sent shivers racing down her spine. She spun back toward the window, the shards of glass strewn across the floor glistening like glittering traps, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw something, just a flash, like a long limb disappearing behind the house's edge. A horrifying thought chased her. What if it wasn't a figment of her imagination? Mom, please. Lily's voice was achingly close now, a trembling beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Sarah's heart lurched. She stumbled toward the source, weaving through the murky shadows. Hang on. She could almost hear the echo of her own heartbeat pulsing through the thumping dread. Each step felt heavier, as if the darkness coiled around her ankles, rooting her to the ground. Shadows lunged at her out of nowhere, taunts of cold wisps playing in her peripheral vision, but she pressed on. The fear ignited a fire inside her, pushing her forward against the beckoning dark. Mom! The cry was frantic now, slicing through the raging noise outside. Sarah could hardly breathe. She reached for the door, fingers trembling as she fumbled with the knob, too afraid to look behind her. If she turned, what horrific sight awaited? What horror was taking form behind those shivering walls? The door swung wide, revealing the muddled silhouette of Lily against the dim light. Mom! I saw it. I saw it. Her little face was pale, etched with fear so profound it stung Sarah's heart. What did you see? Panic filled Sarah as she pulled her daughter close. She could feel the trembling in Lily's small frame. Whatever had arisen tonight had wrapped its tendrils around her family. Outside something was watching us. Her words were choked, like she was reliving the terror. It had eyes everywhere. The invasive darkness seemed to pulse in tandem with their fear. Sarah glanced towards the window again. The figures had multiplied, squat, twisted forms pressing against the glass, their eyes glinting with an unearthly hunger. They were watching, waiting, hungering for their next move. Lily, we need to. Before Sarah could finish, a deafening crash echoed through the house. The back wall shuddered, and loose bricks burst outward, sending debris flying into the room, the sound drowning out their breaths. Mom! It's coming! Lily screamed, her eyes wide with terror. The shadows flooded into the room like a dark tide, swallowing the light whole. Sarah felt the pull of the void, a sinister voice whispering from within the dark, promising safety if she would just give in. She shook her head, trying to dispel the thoughts. Trust me, we're getting out. She grabbed Lily's hand. The moment felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, gravity threatening to pull them down. No, don't move. Lily screamed again, her voice shrill with unmistakable terror, but Sarah couldn't stand still, couldn't hide from the encroaching darkness. She yanked her daughter's arm and spun around, running back towards the doorway. As they darted through the hallway, the air buzzed with malice. Shadows flicked at their heels. Each step felt heavy with dread, like they were being stalked by something just out of view. Suddenly, a dark mass surged in front of them, making Sarah skid to a stop. It wasn't just shadows anymore. It had taken shape, arms stretching towards them, pushing against the air as they shrieked in unholy laughter. Run! Sarah screamed, her heart racing. Lily tugged at her arm, pulling her back toward safety, but Sarah felt an icy grip clench around her throat, as if the darkness was trying to pull her back. She fought against it, dragging her daughter with her, but the house trembled once more. A violent shake that rattled the windows, and the walls echoed with a sinister voice, whispering her name like a malignant lullaby. Sarah, the shadows pulsed closer, the walls closing in. Could they escape this time? Could they ward off what had risen to consume them? Mom! Lily cried, her eyes glistening with tears. Hold on tight. Sarah steeled herself against the encroaching darkness squeezing in. But somewhere in the back of her mind, dread seeped in. What if the darkness already had what it wanted? As the shrieking shadows lunged forward, clutching at her heels, Sarah raced for freedom. But outside, the darkness only thickened, ready to offer a menacing welcome to those who dared trespass its domain. What awaited them beyond the door? The answer was the last truth Sarah ever wanted to find out. The hallway stretched out in front of them, an abyss of shadows that threatened to swallow them whole. Each creak of the floorboards felt amplified, echoing in the oppressive silence. Sarah could feel the pulsing darkness wrapping tighter, a living thing keen on dragging them back, but she pressed forward, driven by a primal instinct to protect her daughter. "Where do we go?" Lily's voice trembled, filled with fear that was almost palpable. "Stay close," Sarah barked, her heart racing as they dashed toward the back door. The sounds of chaos outside had only intensified, a cacophony of shrieks and maniacal laughter that felt like a living nightmare. As they neared the door, a frigid gust ripped through, making the hair on the back of her neck stand up. The ominous whispers returned, curling around her thoughts like a snake. "Sarah, where are you going?" The voice slithered through the air, taunting and familiar, like a memory rearing its ugly head. "Just ignore it." She turned her head away, shoving the door open with a force that rattled the wood. The moonlight spilled into the room, illuminating the chaos outside, shadows writhing, figures twisting, eyes glaring from every corner. "Mom! They're coming!" Lily screamed, pointing at an advancing cluster of those grotesque forms, their limbs impossibly long, stretching toward them as if defying flesh and bone. "Run!" Sarah urged, yanking Lily with her outside. The cool night air felt like a deceptive comfort, for as soon as they stepped onto the porch, the same darkness from inside surged after them, a tide of shadows crashing with soundless ferocity. They sprinted down the porch steps, and Sarah's heart sank. The yard seemed endless, a black sea churning with the remnants of a world that had become unrecognizable. The moment she dared to look behind them, a figure lunged forward, grotesque and elongated, its face a distorted mask of hunger. She could almost see its teeth, sharp and jagged, glinting in the moonlight as it howled. "No," whispered her name. "Stop!" Lily's plea rang out. Sarah considered her daughter's smallness for just an instant, fighting back the wave of despair that threatened to swallow them both. They darted left, toward the tree line, where darkness thickened like fog. It was a risk, but they had no other choice. As they fled, the laughter of the shadows echoed behind them, a sickening chorus drowning out any rational thought. "Mom, look out!" Lily tugged her, but it was too late. A shadow lunged from the side, its long fingers just grazing Sarah's arm. Pain blossomed where it touched her, cold and deep, as if ice had seeped into her veins. She stumbled but reached down to grasp Lily's hand tighter, folding them tightly against her. Just as their feet hit the edge of the forest, the ground seemed to swallow them, roots obscured by the dark snaking around their ankles. Sarah pulled with all her strength, forcing them both into the thick trees. "We can hide, we can." The words fell short. The shadows morphed, swirling against the tree bark, and the whispers transformed into screams of rage. They wanted them. No, they needed them. "We have to keep moving." Sarah gasped, scanning the looming darkness for any path. But the woods twisted into a maze, branches gnarled like desperate hands reaching out to ensnare them further. Each step sent tendrils of fear crawling up her spine. Desperation clawed at her throat again, stifling reason. The whispers intensified, tugging at their minds. "Join us forever." Suddenly, a figure emerged from between the trees, a tall man, his face shadowed. Sarah froze. An overwhelming sense of déjà vu washed over her as recognition clawed at her. Was this the figure she had seen before? The one with the eyes that watched her in the night? "Help!" Lily screamed, but the plea fell into the encroaching dark. The man stepped closer, the shadow stretching behind him like a cape. His mouth opening, a smile that glistened with malice spread wide. "You've come to play with us." Before Sarah could react, a shattering sound erupted from behind, sending a chill coursing through her. They were surrounded. "Lily!" Sarah's urgency turned into a primal scream. The woods closed in around them, and the laughter grew louder, drowning out everything else. What would happen if they succumbed to it? What if the darkness finally claimed them both? Panic surged in her chest, overpowering her instinct, as the figure loomed still closer, a predator's hunger gleaming in his eyes. "Do you want to play?" he echoed, the shadows dancing around them, ready to consume whoever dared answer. An unthinkable choice lay ahead. Would she stand her ground, or was running the only option left? The figure leaned closer, his breath a cold wind that reeked of decay. Sarah could feel her heart thundering in her chest, each beat echoing the rising dread that twisted inside her. The shadows around them didn't just dance, they pulsed with life. They were not mere darkness, they were alive, hungry, and closing in. "Run!" She screamed again, gripping Lily's hand tighter as she yanked her away from the ominous figure. But the moment they turned, the woods shifted. A dense fog rolled in, weaving around the trees like a sinister blanket, obscuring everything in its path. "Mom!" Lily gasped, her voice breaking as they stumbled deeper into the wilderness. Each branch that snapped underfoot was a reminder of the chaos creeping on their heels. The laughter, the whispers, it all melded into a haunting symphony that threatened to drown out their will to survive. They zigzagged through the trees, but there was no safe direction. The darkness shifted, as if having a mind of its own, leading them in circles. Sarah's chest tightened. "Stay close, don't look back," she panted, forcing her legs to move faster. Each step felt like running in place, a cruel game played by the shadows around them. Suddenly, they broke through a thin cluster of trees, revealing a small clearing bathed in moonlight. It felt like a cruel trick, beautiful yet deadly. The laughing morphed into a low hum, a seductive call laced with danger. "Look!" Lily pointed, her voice trembling. In the center of the clearing lay an ancient stone altar, dark and slick like pooled blood. Etched into the surface were symbols that seemed to writhe and pulse like the shadows themselves. They were horrific images, twisting faces that warped in agony, beckoning for release. "Mom, what is that?" Lily whimpered, backing away as comprehension settled like lead in Sarah's stomach. "I think it wants us more than just want, it needed." The hungry whispers grew louder, wrapping around her mind like a spider's web. "Come join us," they beckoned, seductive and sinister. "You are the prize." "No!" Sarah shouted, shaking her head violently. "We want to be part of this." But her defiance felt small against the consuming darkness threatening to envelop them. She turned to Lily, her gaze fierce. "We need to go, now." As they started to retreat, the shadows surged forward, growing bolder, claws extending toward them. The man with malicious eyes stood at the edge, arms stretched wide, welcoming them into an eternal night. "You can't escape, little girls. You must play." The branches around them twisted, branching into grotesque shapes that clawed at Sarah's throat. Each breath filled her lungs with the choking stench of despair. The darkness latched onto her legs, pulling, tugging as if the forest itself was conspiring against their escape. "Hold on, Lily." With a sudden surge of adrenaline, Sarah gripped her daughter's hand tighter, using the last of her strength to break free from the suffocating grasp. They ran, faster than before, the clearing quickly fading into a veil of darkness behind them. But the laughter rang in their ears, echoing as they plunged back into the thick woods. Every direction became a blur of trees and shadows. The ground seemed to move beneath them, the roots grasping at their ankles as if aware of their plight. Just as they thought they might have a chance, a heavy branch swooped down, knocking Sarah off her feet. She fell hard, chest heaving, mind racing. "Mom!" Lily cried, her voice thick with terror. An overwhelming urge to protect surging through Sarah, she scrambled to her feet, pulling her daughter close. They were no longer just fleeing, they were fighting back against something that wanted to claim them. But what other horrors lay ahead, lurking in the deeper darkness, ready to shatter this fragile moment of resolve? "Don't look back, just focus ahead," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. But what they would face next was a question deep in her gut. What if this was only the beginning of something far worse waiting in the shadows? Then, through the fog, a low growl resonated, the very earth vibrating beneath them, hinting at a deeper, more primal threat. The hunt was far from over. And just like that, the sound grew louder, more unmistakable, churning something ancient, something undying, beneath the ground. What other terrors lurked in the night, ready to uncover their deepest fears? The growl came again, deeper this time, a guttural sound that pressed against their chests. Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the ground shifting beneath her like a restless beast, ready to lunge. "Keep running!" she shouted, pulling Lily along with desperate urgency. The trees thickened, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers. They could still hear the echoes of those sinister whispers, coiling through the fog like smoke. It felt as if the very air around them was charged with violent energy, a haunting chorus that taunted their every move. "Mom, I can't run anymore." Lily gasped, collapsing to her knees, breathless and terrified. "Please. No. You have to get up." Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving, but the shadows were closing in again. She crouched down, forcing Lily to look into her eyes. "We can't stop. We must keep going." The little girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her small body seemed weighed down by the fear, the oppressive darkness that constricted her will. With a heave, Sarah lifted her, cradling her against her chest and pushing ahead. Each step was a fight against the consuming dread, the growl intensified, a low, menacing chuckle that vibrated through the ground. Something monstrous was nearby. The forest whispered secrets among its twisted roots. Every cracked branch and rustle in the leaves heightened her fear, pushing them deeper into a living nightmare. Suddenly, the earth shifted violently beneath them. From the corner of her eye, Sarah caught a glimpse of a shadow breaking free from the trees, the shape of something large and primal. Her stomach churned at the sight. "Go, go, go!" she screamed, adrenaline igniting her limbs, sending them sprinting forward. They dashed past the trees, racing toward treacherous underbrush that threatened to snare their legs like hungry jaws. They needed to reach the other side, the safety of the path if they were to have any hope of escape. As they barreled through, an ear-splitting crash erupted behind them. The creature was charging. Sarah dared a glance back over her shoulder. It was massive, overpowering, all teeth and shadow, its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Terror surged, nearly freezing her in place. "Run!" she urged, a fire igniting in her core. Lily whimpered but dug deep for strength and followed her mother, desperation fueling each step. They spotted a small clearing ahead, illuminated faintly by a flickering light. Hope flickered with it. "Over there!" Sarah shouted. The two surged towards it, but then the ground quaked again, causing both of them to stumble. The laughter returned, shrill and mocking, bathing the air with dread. Just when it felt they might escape, a dark form loomed out of the depths, blocking their way, a figure bathed in shadows. "No!" Sarah's voice echoed against the thickening fog, a plea and a promise of defiance. They were ensnared, trapped in a web woven by malevolence. There was no clear path to freedom, only the gaping maw of horror swallowing their hope. With only seconds to decide, they could either face the figure, the source of their nightmare, or plunge deeper into the shadows from where they just escaped. But something shifted behind her, and Sarah felt the urge to turn to confront the darkness head-on, despite everything warning her not to. "Lily, stay close," she commanded. The figure's eyes glinted with a hunger far greater than she'd imagined, a darkness more alive and aware than anything human. A choice hung heavy in the air, heavy as lead, fight or flee. And just as the thought settled, the forest erupted, shadows engulfing their world. What will they face next? The ground trembled beneath Sarah as she turned to face the figure. Its outline twisted and writhed like smoke, obscured by the thick fog. An unnatural cold swept through the clearing, wrapping around her like chains, tightening with each passing moment. She could hardly breathe, the panic gripping her heart like a vice. "Lily," Sarah whispered, but the little girl had fallen silent, clinging tightly to her mother's neck, eyes wide with unshed tears, a reflection of pure terror. Sarah wanted to reassure her, but the words caught in her throat as the figure surged closer, its presence overwhelming. "Choose." A voice rasped from the shadows, low and mocking. It echoed around them, vibrating against the trees, curling around their fears. The shape flickered like a shadow trying to break free from its prison, and Sarah felt a strange pull in her chest, a tugging urge to step forward and embrace it. "No!" she screamed, shaking her head violently as if to dispel the treacherous thoughts. "We won't choose anything. Just leave us alone." But her defiance felt feeble, swallowed by the malevolence that loomed before them. The shadows danced, forming grotesque shapes that whispered her deepest insecurities. What kind of mother was she? Would she fail to save her daughter? Each thought wormed its way through her mind, threatening to break her resolve. Mom, Lily whimpered, her small body trembling as she pressed closer, seeking comfort in her mother's warmth. Sarah held her tighter, vowing silently to protect her at all costs. The figure advanced, muscles rippling beneath the shadowy skin, glistening with an unholy sheen. Its eyes burned brighter with every step, hungry and filled with a predatory glee. Sarah could see them now, 3 pairs, eyes wider than any animal. They watched them with that insatiable hunger. "Running will get you nowhere," it hissed, its voice slithering through the air, planting seeds of doubt. "You cannot escape the choices that bind you." In that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of fear igniting deep in her gut. What choices? What binds? The realization washed over her like ice water. This was not just a chase, not just a monster in the woods. It was a confrontation with their darkest fears. "Mom, what do we do?" Lily's voice trembled, the weight of their situation pressing down hard. The flickering light from the clearing seemed to dim, replaced by an oppressive shadow that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. Every instinct told her to flee, to run back into the darkness, but those whispers urged her to confront the shadows, to stand defiant. The conflict raged within her just as fiercely as the monster approached. In that moment, she felt the possibility of her own darkness clawing at her vibrant soul. "Fight it," she ordered, both to herself and her daughter, as the shadow closed the distance. It felt like a challenge, one that would not only determine their fate but unravel the truths they buried deep inside. "Whatever it is, we can face it." With a sudden burst of courage, Sarah stepped forward, dragging Lily by her side. The creature paused, bemused by their boldness. Sarah could feel the weight of the air shift, the atmosphere crackling with rising tension. Choices began unfurling before her, each decision shaping their reality, wielding monstrous consequences they could hardly fathom. "Release us!" she cried out, defiance ringing clear and strong, her heart racing, but the laughter that filled the air was not just from the creature, it echoed from the very woods around them, a sinister chorus mocking her bravery. Her hands trembled, uncertainty battling against fierce determination. As darkness pooled closer around them, Sarah's mind raced. What if this choice was the wrong one? But there was no turning back. They moved together, standing shoulder to shoulder against the gathering storm. Then, in that moment, the laughter twisted, transforming into something far more sinister, a haunting melody that spoke of betrayal and despair. It tangled with the shadows that swirled around them, and Sarah knew, deep down, the challenge was just beginning. What choice awaited them on the other side of this shadowy tide? Would they uncover the truth, or would they be consumed by their fears? Before she could form a plan, something shattered behind them, a sudden crack that split the air. They spun around, dread congealing in her stomach. Whatever was out there was not done with them yet. What now lay in wait? The sound echoed through the darkness, sharp and splintering like bones snapping. Sarah's heart raced, a wild drum against her ribs. "Stay close, Lily," she commanded, her voice shaking as she held on to her daughter. Together, they pivoted to face the source of the noise, footsteps. Heavy and deliberate, growing louder with every passing second. Sarah strained her eyes, trying to pierce the fog that thickened around them, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs refused to move, frozen by the collision of terror and instinct. Suddenly, from out of the murky veil, a figure emerged. This one was distinctly human, pale and gaunt, with ribbons of dark hair plastered against a sunken face. The person's eyes were wide, frantic, yet hollow, like an empty socket staring into oblivion. For a moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was someone who could help them. "Help us!" Sarah shouted, her voice losing strength amidst the cacophony of panic. "Please." But the figure didn't respond. Instead, it stumbled closer, dragging one foot awkwardly as if it were tethered to the ground. An icy sweat dripped down Sarah's back, a chill settling like a stone in her gut. "Witness." It rasped, the voice cracking like ice. "Witness the choices. Witness the darkness." The shadows around them twisted violently, reacting to the being's words. Sarah clutched Lily tighter, who let out a whimper. They couldn't escape this. The darkness was alive, pulsing, ready to consume anything in its path. "Run!" Sarah yelled, instinct kicking in, and she pulled Lily along, moving deeper into the trees. The whispers surged louder, the creature's mocking laughter following them, wrapping around them like a chilling embrace. Branches clawed at Sarah's arms, tearing at her clothes, each scratch a reminder of the danger. The fog thinned slightly, revealing a dimly lit path ahead. A glimpse of hope. Or a trap. Suddenly, Lily screamed, "Mom!" The ground beneath them gave way, and they slipped into a pit, falling into a hidden cavern lined with damp earth and the stench of decay. Sarah landed hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. She rolled over, panic coursing through her veins as she scanned for Lily. Lily! The little girl lay a short distance away, shaking. Sarah scrambled to her side, pulling her close. "Are you okay?" "I'm scared," Lily sobbed, her small body trembling like a leaf in a storm. "I know, sweetheart, but we have to move. We can't let it find us." The laughter echoed down into the pit, a twisted game played at their expense. "You thought you could escape?" It taunted, shifting from one shadow to another, punctuating its words with haunting mirth. They clung to each other, terror wrapping around them tighter than the dark. "Choices," it crooned, the sound reverberating, as if the walls themselves mocked them. "What does it mean?" Sarah whispered, a chill creeping up her spine. But Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't know, Mom. What do we do?" As laughter faded, a tremor rumbled through the ground, and with it, the shadows pressed closer, suffocating all hope. Sarah's heart raced. She had to think. They had to find a way out. In that moment, a light flickered above them, weak, but steady. It was coming from a narrow gap in the cave's roof. "There!" Sarah gasped. "We can climb out." But as they moved toward the light, the shadows surged, blocking their path, a wall of swirling darkness. "You will not escape," the truths unwound, it hissed, creeping closer. A revelation struck Sarah like lightning. To face the shadows, they had to confront the choices they feared, a truth buried in the depths of their past. "Together," she murmured, summoning strength. "We need to face it together." But the ground split open beneath them, sending a shudder of dread through the air. Their escape was closing. "Now!" Sarah cried, pulling Lily along as they reached for the flickering light. What truth awaited them in the remnants of their own darkness? Would they rise to the surface, or would they be consumed in the shadows forever? The whispers grew louder, promising secrets yet untold. The cave trembled around them, the air thick with impending dread as Sarah and Lily pulled closer to the flickering light above. Hope swirled within Sarah as she grasped Lily's tiny hand tighter, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It was now or never. They needed to escape this nightmarish trap that had been woven around them. "Hold on tight, sweetheart," she urged, her voice steady despite the urgency pounding in her heart. The shadows writhed hungrily, clawing at their ankles, whispering lies that rattled her very being. "Face it. You cannot escape." The darkness loomed closer, pressing against their resolve. The gap above seemed to shimmer, teasing them with a possibility of freedom just beyond reach. "Climb," Sarah instructed, taking a few determined steps toward the wall of the cave. The rough, damp rock felt cool against her fingertips as she began to scale it, drawing on every ounce of strength. The darkness sighed, a sinister wind swirling around them, yet the determination in Sarah's heart burned brighter. "Mommy, I can't. Lily sobbed, her voice strained with fear and desperation. Sarah turned, looking into her daughter's terrified eyes, searching for solace even in her own turmoil. You can. You have the strength within you, Sarah pressed, her own fear reflected back in Lily's wide eyes. We've come this far. Don't let it win. Taking a deep breath, she planted her feet firmly on the cave's uneven surface, pulling her daughter up into her arms. Together, I promise, she said softly, as a glimmer of resolve surged in Lily's wide eyes. Together, they echoed. With every ounce of strength they had left, they climbed. Each scrabble for purchase brought them closer to the light, but still, the shadows breathed down their necks, taunting them with the promise of despair. You think you can escape? The shadows hissed in unison, their voices a chorus of mockery and malice. Face your choices. But Sarah refused to yield. She grit her teeth and pushed up harder, clutching Lily against her chest as she felt the warmth of the light wash over her. They were almost there. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently, making her slip. But instead of fear, something fierce ignited within her. A protective fury flared. No more. She roared against the encroaching dark. With renewed fervor, they surged upward, clawing at the rusting earth, until finally, they broke through. Light flooded their senses, a pure silver glow that swept the shadows away, dissipating their hold. The luminous rim of the gap widened, illuminating a pathway leading into an unknown expanse beyond. With a final cry of determination, they hurled themselves through the opening into the night air, tumbling onto solid ground, gasping in the cool night breeze. The faint cries of their pursuers faded like whispers on the wind. Heart pounding, Sarah rose, pulling Lily into her arms, wrapping her tightly. The darkness behind them melted back into the shadows, their voices now mere echoes of a nightmare they had escaped. Are we safe? Lily asked, her voice small but threaded with a confidence sparked by survival. For now, Sarah replied, clutching her tightly, tears streaming down her face, the remnants of fear giving way to relief. And we will be safe together. We'll keep running towards the light. As Sarah looked around, she realized the quiet of the night enveloped them, a stillness deep and serene. The moon hung bright above, casting a silver glow over the path ahead and filling her heart with hope, a spark igniting in the dark. Tonight had been terrifying, a terror that had clawed at the edges of her sanity. But it also exposed a truth that strength could manifest in vulnerability, and that love could conquer the most excruciating fears. Hand in hand, Sarah and Lily took their first cautious steps down that new path, the silhouettes of their past continuing to fade away like shadows chased by dawn. They had survived, and together, they could face whatever lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, but they would carry the light within them. They were no longer prey in this twisted game. They were survivors, united against the darkness, and they would face the world together. Before the final image faded into the night, an urgent question lingered in Sarah's heart: what would they build together from this? But that was a story yet to be told. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a world of difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think will happen next? And wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support.